Welcome back to Black Girl Couch Reviews. I'm your host, Christina. We are back for another episode of The Umbrella Academy on Netflix, Season 1, Episode 5, Number 5. That's appropriate, right? I wondered if they were going to name the 5th episode Number 5. I ain't even gonna lie, before that had went through my brain, but I completely forgot it until I wrote down the title of this episode. So I'm glad that they were going exactly how I felt, where we should have an episode focused on this character who is quickly becoming my favorite character. I know it's really hard to get down to one, just because I really love Allison. Every time I see her, I'm like, you're just so freaking gorgeous. But, there's a lot to love about this family. This is my family. I'm in love with them. I'm just the whatever, 7th member. I don't even know how many there are. But this was a really good episode. I really enjoyed it. It was directed by Ellen Kuras and written by Bob DeLaurentis. And he did some work on OC, which I never watched, and Fargo, which I watched some of the Fargo series. Anyway, and it wasn't that I didn't like it. It was just that I had a lot going on and I never got back to it. So I gave this one an 8.7 out of 10. Before we do jump into this episode, just some real quick, brief news and gossip. The really kind of old news and gossip, but Felicity Huffman, which y'all know her from, was she in Sex and the City? I know her from something, I cannot remember. Anyway, I know she was in, I'm blanking out all over the place. That show on NBC. American Crime Story or something like that. Yeah, she was in that. She was arrested in this huge college scandal where they were faking people's admissions and doing all this shit. Now she's facing some serious ass jail time, and so is a lot of parents. So white collar crime is coming back in season. We can go ahead and forget all these, not forget, but we had a lot of sexual assaults in the news lately. Not a lot of white collar crime that's actually being prosecuted. And we're not counting Trump, because it didn't get prosecuted, even though that dude was up in, let's not even go into that. Okay, and then anyway, the even better news, The Flash has a new showrunner for season 6, and he's black, and his name is Eric Wallace. He has been the co-producer or co-executive producer on the show since season 4. And it's not that I have not liked the tones of season 4 and season 5. I've just found them problematic at certain points, and that season 4 was probably not as strong in a lot of other ways than it could be. But I still find the 3, 4, and 5 is kind of where the show really hit its stride for me anyway. And far as developing the characters, a lot of the first season was just getting to know everyone, and you're never going to have that feeling again, right? The first season, everything's new. A lot of people go back to that season, but it had its issues too. At least for me, it did. I personally was not into all that CW drama between Eddie and Barry and Linda, and I was like, oh. And then season 2, right around when they were done with Patty, is when I really actually started getting into the show. Maybe because West Allen was starting to head towards canon at that point, but also because they did pick up on the storylines, I think, in my opinion, a lot better. So I'm really happy that he's going to be taking over. I sent out a tweet this week kind of stating something to the fact that the show would start to do, I think it would have less moaning about the inconsistency in the show if they were able to focus their storyline around the Flash family, as it's supposed to be. I've said this from jump. Show is about the Flash family, not about Star Labs, not about all this other shit sometimes that be going on in the show and these one-off big ass, villains. Yes, we've always had villains in, the comics. However, it's still centered around the Flash family, and I feel like they're trying to service too many characters sometimes, and that really interferes with how well their seasons end up falling out. Because if it's not working with the audience, you can go sell it all you want to. The audience wants what it wants. Now, sometimes the audience is a little and when we talk about Flash, we'll get there. However, a great deal of the successful episodes happen to have the backing of, yes, it actually is better when you focus the entire thing on around the interactions between not only the West Allens, but the West Allen family. When I say West Allens, I don't just mean, Caitlin and Cisco are part of the family, but sometimes they give them these side plots that doesn't necessarily do anything. And I'm not saying they shouldn't have their own moments, but they're trying to over service, in my opinion. This is not about the Flash though, so this is just news and gossip to be all excited about this new showrunner and that Todd Helbing's stepping down. I think he's done a phenomenal job. I don't shit on him in any way. I think he's definitely given a really good 5 seasons of this show. However, I think it is important for shows that have a tendency to want to go on for 7, 8, 9, 10 seasons to start shaking up. Otherwise you're going to get stale, and that's what The Walking Dead fell into after Gimple. They kept him on just entirely too long when they needed to really keep a showrunner maybe every 2 seasons, just so they can another flavor in there. It's amazing how much that really changes the dynamic on how the audience views that show. So enough of that, let's jump right into this episode. We start with number 5. He is in the apocalypse looking badass as hell, trudging along Dolores in one of those trolley carts, and he's pushing around. He's just a little kid, but he's still all prepared. He's got himself all wrapped up. He's got that that old man Logan shit going on. And then we see the adult number 5 years later, where he's gotten a little bit more smarter. He's got a little more stuff, and he's dragging around a wagon. And then our last flashback, we're not for the episode, but the last scene with this one is him as an old man, so we can see how many years has he been here, like 40 something, 50, I don't know, I forgot, it's been a minute, but he is definitely quite aged at this point, and he has upgraded to riding a bike and pulling his supplies. So it really hit home to me again that he has lived his whole entire life not only alone, but in this waste apocalyptic world. Now I wonder how much we're going to get more of this backstory, because he did have sense to have a gun. So was he really the only person alive on Earth, or maybe there was other animals, because that's the thing. If there's no people around, nature will take back itself. There's a lot of animals extinct right now because of humans. I'm sure if humans were to grow extinct, there would be no shortage of, and there had to be, right? Or he wouldn't have all that food. I mean, I guess if there's just, keep traveling, eventually you're not going to run out of food if it's just you, but you know what I mean. Anyway, he's made this little home for himself with Dolores, and he's drinking this glass of wine. I love that he puts it in the wine. It's a bottle of Bordeaux that he stole, and he mentions to, like, hey, you remember when we were at that place when we did and then he stops and he's like, oh, I stole a box of wine for you. And I'm like, they be fucking right. Like, he clearly, come on, he's a young man, puberty, hormones, things. There was a huge relationship with Dolores that he has, and it's at points very endearing, and at other points tragically sad, because as much as he may feel like Dolores is a real person, it is manifested completely from his own ideals, and that's him for the most part having a conversation with him. He manifested a part of himself that was separate from himself, and I wonder if he did that type of disassociation to try to keep his humanity in check. I mean, obviously he did it just to keep surviving. He needed some type of company. But I'm also, in this episode, there's conversations about innocence and what he had to do to survive. And I wonder if he put a part of his childhood self that was a little bit more moralistic, who had more sense, and he kind of disassociated that person into Dolores, but he also manifested whatever needed to be in that relationship, whether it be sister, friend, wife, lover, whatever. So as he's drinking, Dolores is apparently cursing him out, telling him he has a drinking problem, because he mentions that he does not. And then a random woman shows up. She's dressed all in black, and she has a case that we've seen with Cha-Cha and Hazel's, one of those time traveling cases. And I was like, is that the girl from Grey's Anatomy? Is that Addison? I'm pretty sure it is. Then we go to the present, and number 5 has woken up from his hangover, and he's telling Luther about the apocalypse. Luther's like, well, when is it gonna happen? He's like, 4 days. Luther rightly says, like, well, what the fuck? Why are you just now telling me this? Or telling any of us this? We could have been doing something to try to prevent this. And he says, well, no, you guys already did. You just don't know it. And that's when he reveals that, no, I did find you guys in the rubble all together. And apparently whatever went down, you were trying to stop it and you didn't make it. And I pried this eyeball out of your hand, which is something you must have yanked at your time of death. And Luther takes a look at the eyeball that he's been tracking this entire time and says, oh, there's a serial number. Maybe we should. And he's like, I already went down that route. Like, what did you think I was doing for the last 2 days? But of course he don't know. And there is a part of me, and I get it, by the end of this episode, that number 5 has just been alone for so long. He has put it all on himself. However, you do have this group of super powered family members that, yes, you're trying to save. I think it just, because he survived it, I think he's obsessed with trying to save them now, because whatever they do, it's not going to be enough. And that's why he feels he needs to be the one to come up with the idea or the solution to stop this from happening. So Diego comes home. He's pissed because he's found Eudora dead. And he starts to come for number 5, like, you son of a bitch. And Luther picks him up like he is just a child. It was so adorably cute because we've been seeing them butt heads consistently. And yet when there's time for, oh no, family's on the line, let's do what we got to do. I love this about this family, as dysfunctional, because there's this thing out there. I have a lot of brothers and sisters. I have 3 sisters and 1 brother. So that's a huge family. And then I grew up with my cousins because their mom had an MS, so they came to live with my mom. She legally adopted them. So then I had an additional 3 cousins who were all male that I grew up from the age of 10. And there is something to be said for the fact that when you are a family and it's a large group, there is no one that will dog your life out or disappoint you or shit on you like your family members. However, let someone step from the outside. Like, you'd be like, what the fuck? Like, I thought you was even cool with him. Like, no, I talk to him like that. You don't talk to him like that. You're out of your damn mind. So I love that connects so well with me and this family. The fact that they're so on each other's shit and give each other a hard time. And yet there's restraint with them. There is love between them. There's caring between them. And the fact that they will fuck up anybody who even thinks about stepping on any of them. And I truly enjoy that about the relationship. Especially with I think Vanya's the only one out of that. And we'll get to her story a little bit later. But when Luther picked him up and he's just like, he's kind of kicking at him. You can see he probably did this when he was kids. This feels so old. He's like, I can do this all day. And tonight I'm not going to let you go until you calm down. Because he's telling him, get your ape hands off me. Like, he clearly knows that's a weak spot. But he also says it in a way to be like, you know, you big oaf, I don't know what to do with this right now, because he clearly handles him very well. If Diego ain't throwing them knives, he ain't got shit on Luther and the sheriff department anyway. But he calms down immediately because he's like, you're talking to our brother, I'm not gonna let you attack him. So Luther's probably also used to that role as being the eldest. He's the one that has probably stopped many of these fights. And again, Diego calms down. He lets him go, even though his feet was dangling. And he tells him, well, our brother number 5 has been fucking busy. He shot up Gertie's. He's the person that is the reason why they came to our house and attacked us. They was looking for his ass. And they didn't even know about Klaus at this point. But Diego did, because he's like, yeah, they had one of my brothers. And now my friend Eudora is dead because of him. And he wants to know what the fuck is going on. And number 5 goes, well, that's not your concern. And I'm like, really? Like, I love you, all of you, number 5, but what the fuck you mean it don't? Not his concern. Are you kidding me? Like, I just picked you out of a library yesterday when you were drunk as fuck with a damn mannequin. The least you owe me is an explanation. And that's when Diego does tell them that, you know, it is now because they killed my friend and he wants the revenge. And he asks, who are they? And number 5 says that they were sent by his former employer called the Handler. And then number 5 states to him, because Diego's like, well, I'm about to fuck them up. He's like, no, that would be a mistake. Don't do that. Don't go after them. You know, you're not capable of handling this. But again, I feel like this comes from a perspective of when number 5 saw him last. Because the last time you've seen them has been a kid. He has evolved since then. I don't, you didn't witness the fight at the academy. It's not like they, you know, walked out good. Even Hazel says it. Like, we barely got out alive last time. So, no, his brothers can handle their business. You think you good. Well, so is the rest of your fucking family. And they don't stop him as he leaves. They go back to the flashback once again. Some of these flashbacks where I was like, this was the one where I was like, did we really need to waste another 5 minutes showing us the same dead Eudora and then him finding the Gritty's receipt? But I guess in case you missed it last time. And I get it, maybe because people binged like maybe 2 episodes a piece or 1 or 2, I don't know. Anyway, Luther is like, okay, dude, like, the fuck is this that's going on? What about your employer? Who the hell is your employer? And number 5 says it's a long story. And then that's when we follow back up with the flashback in which the Handler is there stating that she wants to recruit number 5. They've been watching him and they like his trick. Now I have no freaking clue who they are, but if this show gets more seasons, I'm betting 100% they're involved. Because this tells me this whole thing with him is the real meat story, I think. And what's happening now is kind of like this thing that has to happen before we get to the meat story. Because I'm sure they're going to try to... And again, I don't know. I'm wondering if the apocalypse, as they are saying, is meant to be. It's meant to happen. The story is not meant to happen with them saving the world. It's them evolving into what they need to do in the future. And is that something to do with the Hargreaves man? I don't know. It's so many questions. I never read the comics, guys, so I don't know. Shit, don't spoil me, but I don't know. I really don't know what's happening. She tells him that she works for an agency called the Commission, and they basically preserve the timeline, and anyone who fucks with it, they eliminate them. And I was like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah. She's like, and people, what did she say? Something about free will. She's like, free will, don't get me started on that. Anytime someone makes a different choice that alters the timeline, they have to actually eliminate them as well. And I'm like, damn. Is it eliminate them and then they can't do anything else because it'll snowball other effects? Or I don't know. It's just a really interesting concept to me, and I want it to be explored more. I guess, again, the thing where they point out that number 5, like, you're able to time travel without this briefcase, which is something apparently they're not able to do. So that's why they think he's pretty special and they're trying to recruit him. But at the same time, no, because they give him a lot of leeway as well, especially when we get to the end of this episode. So there's too many questions. I'll be asking them all day. But number 5 is like, oh, so I can go back, to the before. And she's like, well, of course, after 5 years of service, that is, you can retire to any timeline and place of your choosing. And it's a contract. You need to fulfill that contract. And he mentions something about preventing what happened. Like, why can't you prevent the apocalypse? And she says, what was meant to happen happened, and it wasn't the end of everything, as he thinks it's the beginning of something else. Again, an allusion to a grander scheme that may have been the reason why these kids were chosen. I wonder if this has to do with the other 30-something other kids, because there's 43, right? So what, we were left like 38? I wonder if they did something. Like, they were the ones that ended up changing the world to the point where, they inherited and made it a new world. However, that bigger thing, to combat those people, Hargreaves had picked these children to try to train them to be moralistically better. I don't know. It's very questions. Anyway, he takes her up on this, of course, and we get this montage, because who wants to stay in fucking apocalypse? Takes this montage of showing him at key events in history. I tried to point out as many as I could. I know there was the Hindenburg that exploded. Oh, I watched that on tape. Oh my god, go back and watch that, y'all. This is stuff way before my time, and I think even before my mom's time. But some of this, and even in my mom's time, I realized very, very sadly, as I got older, that a lot of people don't fucking know their history. Like, a lot of people. I love history documentaries. I'm obsessed with them. Anything I can get my hands on that tells me about things that's happened before just thoroughly intrigues me. But yeah, everyone else was falling asleep in history class, because I be telling my mom stuff, and like she should know it, because she was like alive and there and, you know, half-ass grown, but she be like, I don't fucking know what you're talking about. What? I told her about Nixon, and she was like, oh, I just knew there was a scandal. I'm like, oh my god, let me anyway, so we got that event, how that blow up. If you ever want to watch that documentary, it's awesome. I mean, that's not awesome, it's actually tragic, but it's still crazy to watch, because of course we experimented in time, and all those experiments weren't successful, and some got on tape, and this is one of those. Then I saw Stalin in there. I think I saw the Archduke that got shot, that was assassinated, that started World War I. And then I think there's some other shots of World War II. They're definitely huge events. And there we end the whole flash montage with him on the grassy knoll, hidden behind a fence with a rifle, as JFK gets off his plane. He's ready to come through. And we all know about the JFK, even if you don't know that much, you know there's the conspiracy about the assassination, that a lot of people feel like he was killed by a shooter by the grassy knoll. A lot of people reported that, but it was actually someone else. I forgot his name. Anyway, he was killed the same day anyway, but he shot him from a window, and there was a whole thing about this because of what the Kennedys were doing, and they were trying to take down the mob bosses. There was just too much heat on them, and the way they covered it up, and he ran, and blah, blah, blah. I've watched about 14 documentaries on that, and I can honestly say that it's amazing how people just don't accept things when they just don't think it's right. And I could see how people can feel that way from that, just being in this time. And we see things on the news, we're like, and then you get this bit of information. But I love how they played number 5 in this scene by showing that he was the one on the grassy knoll, and that it almost seemed like he was prepared to take the shot to shoot JFK. Or was he prepared to take the shot to shoot whole boy in the window? Again, I forgot his name. It's blinking on me. I know who it is. I can see his face. I even seen when he got shot, because he got shot on camera by some other guy. But I cannot for the life of me remember his name. But I wonder, with the fact that they eliminate people, who was supposed to be eliminated? Because JFK still got shot by someone else. So are they trying to allude that it was another agent? Or are they just saying, no, he was probably supposed to take out that dude so JFK could live, and now he fucked some shit up? Again, this show with timeline takes it to a whole nother perspective on what they can do with it going forward, and still keeping these characters, because I think that was main concern for me. It was, if they move to season 2, are we still going to get the same cast? Are we going to move to another 8 special people? But I want them to keep these same people. So I hope this is the way that they can do that and keep them, relatively explain away their age, because I know number 5's got to age some way, and I want him to be in the next season. If he's not, I'm gonna fucking fight. But he tells Luther that he was just biding his time this entire time. He did go, and he was good at his job. but it was all so that he could get back to save the world, and he ended up breaking his contract on this fateful day while he was looking at his equations in his book, and he still has Vanya's book. How the fuck he just took her book with him? Maybe because he was working on calculations this whole entire time, which how odd is that you have to come up with mathematical equations to figure out time travel all by yourself for all these years. And that is when we get the point of view of his perspective as he was, doing whatever. He was trying to time jump, and we see him, we see when he threw out the fire extinguisher, it actually went through the portal, and he was able to see them. And they show him coming out as an old man, yada, yada, yada. This was the point of the flashback at first, so I was like, why are we seeing this again? But then when they added the little perks in there on, JFK was shot already, you're hearing that in the background, and you seeing that, he had to throw the fire extinguisher to see that he could actually move through it and that it was working. And he shows up as a young kid, and that's how it all happened. But we also saw him as an old man, so it's even funnier to me, even though I don't ever want to see him as an old man. I want to see him as a kid, because she even mentions that time, we'll put you back to your regular age. No, absolutely not. I want him to be stuck as a kid forever, and I have a feeling he probably will be. Anyway, Luther is taking this all in, and like any great babysitter, gives him like a glass of juice and a sandwich as he's getting his story on. And he's clearly appalled by the fact that he was an assassin. He's like, oh, okay, well, you had a code, right? And he's like, no. But that's innocent people. He's like, yeah, if innocent people get in their way, they're just basically fodder. And he says, but that's murder.
Ooh, child, things are gonna get easier.
Let me tell y'all something. This boy is innocent, and I love it. Stop trying to take his innocence away. Someone's gotta be. I mean, Luther has a code too, but that's what I'm saying. I'm like, he's like, I'm not against you killing. I'm just saying, what you been killing this folks? And he says, Jesus, Luther, grow up. There's no such thing as good and bad. They're just people. And it doesn't matter, because everyone is going to die, and you're going to die. And he doesn't want his family to die is what it boils down to for him. And we see that at the end again, that it really does. He came back for his family. He didn't come back. I mean, you can save the world, sure, but mainly, can I keep my peeps? is his I guess that's the line you can't cross with him. Innocent folks, sure. And then he ends it out with time changes everything. And that is when we see a man on a bus reading a newspaper. Was I supposed to pick up what was in that newspaper? Because it was all close up and I wasn't paying no attention. Because I was like, who is this dude? I thought he was like another agent or something. But then no, it was just to throw us off from the fact that at least I forgot that Klaus had time traveled. And then he pops back up on the bus, and it looks like he has had a very traumatic experience. He's got some type of different clothes on than when he left. It looks like he's got a tattoo that says Sky Soldier, and he's got blood all over his hands. And then he starts, this is the part where I really like Klaus, and was really scared with this actor on him overdoing the part of him that I'm used to him doing for Misfits, and not allowing him to lean more heavily on his very good dramatic acting skills. And I think they allowed him to have a great balance in this episode. And you see that in his interactions with Diego, that he's on this bus, he's sobbing, you see his eyes. My heart was breaking for him. I didn't know what the fuck had went on. But as soon as he gets off the bus, he destroys the case, he starts beating the shit out of it, he throws it, it explodes. And then he starts to paw at the ground on the concrete as if he was trying to, hold someone, cherish someone. And he just falls and he starts crying. And that's when we get to Cha-Cha and Hazel. They are tearing. They have. Did they kill the? What is that? The maid? They killed the maid. I don't know how the man doesn't notice that his maid's missing. Anyway, but they're searching the laundry room still for this damn case, and they get a message from the commission, I'm guessing, through a chute that says they have unauthorized a round trip to 1968 and have been fined, or I don't know, is this a write-up for them? I don't know. Like, you guys can have this case, but don't time travel in it yourself. If you do, you get fined, but if you lose the case, apparently that's your ass. Because they are panicking and desperate. Cha-Cha is chewing Hazel out like, why couldn't you just carry the fucking case? And he tells her rightly, why couldn't you have carried the fucking case? Why'd I gotta carry the case? I got hand problems, and this PT is not covered by our insurance. And she says, well, I see that he's like, you don't hear me complaining about it. And she's like, oh, this is you suffering in silence. And they're really mad because they're like, we got to get this junkie. We got to go to the house. And I love his look. He's like, are you serious? We barely got out of there last time. He was not down with that idea. He's like, you got to fucking be kidding me. Have you seen what's going on there? And that's when Cha-Cha says, well, fine. You go look at pawn shops, and I'm going to get some dirt and find out what's up with this family so that next time we go after them, we got more information. And that's how they leave their plan. We check back in with Allison, who goes to Vanya's apartment, and Vanya's all dressed, got her hair done, got some makeup on, and she's got her coffee and her favorite breakfast, but Vanya's like, no, I got a dick now. Like, I'm sorry, for me, Vanya is the weakest link, and I'm sure there are a lot of people out there probably like, no, Vanya, I understand Vanya, I empathize with Vanya. However, Vanya, and I get it, it's the they set it up like that, right? She's going to be the one that causes shit because she's not listening, because she's been too hurt, because she's isolated herself. But again, there's a part of me that's like, Vanya, you gotta own your own shit though. If you have the audacity to write about your family to the entire world in a book, like, that's like me writing about my family and then expecting to go home and them not say shit about it. Like, that is unrealistically stupid of her to think that that would not have caused a rift in their relationship. And it's not like they were treating her like shit when they were kids. It was the daddy who was telling her she wasn't special and making her feel, and then she felt all that other type of feelings just because her family was different than her. But they were kids. The kids didn't do nothing about it. And then when you're adults, and it sounds like she just, from what we saw of her character progression, she wanted to feel special, so she wrote this damn book. Not to feel vindicated or to break free, but to get some attention. And then when that attention waned, now she's feeling, oh, why is me? And this whole thing with Leonard is exactly that. I need more attention. And it's odd to me that she would want to be closer to her sister and her family, yet her sister's reaching out to her and trying to have breakfast with her. And she's like, well, now I got to go see this new boo because he makes me feel special. What? I mean, I get it, but not really. Maybe I'm just not that cool about a dude I just met. I'm like, that's another thing. You just met him. It's not like it's been like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. This has been like some short time after your daddy died. This is not a good time for anyone to be dating, to be honest. Anyways, we do get the fact that her and Allison have not seen each other in 12 years. So that's the part I was like, okay, I get it. I get that her jumping up in your mentions talking about this dude is weird and he's creepy and do you know him well? Like, maybe you asking me too many questions. But at the same time, who wouldn't ask those questions? If my sister, I haven't seen my sister in quite some time, but if she came up in my house right now and was like, well, I'm dating who? I'm like, oh, okay, what's his name? What'd he do? That's what you naturally do. But it's not only that. Allison caught this dude creeping in her apartment, in her bedroom, in places she should not be. Yes, he put the flowers there to make it, but you could have put flowers on a goddamn table. You don't put flowers on freaking someone's bed in their room. That's where you go when you fucking and sleeping. There's no reason why you should be in there, and any rational person would think the same. So I don't blame Allison either, because it's not like I'm saying, oh, don't date this dude. I'm saying I roll up on him and he was up in your room, and I don't know what the fuck he was doing. And he's really creepy, And I feel like I get a bad vibe from him because I've dealt with creepy, stalkerish people before. But Vanya tells her that, you've been in the rumor business too long, so you're easily distrustful. I trust him enough to go meet him from Leonard. They meet for Leonard, not clearly fast forward. I ain't even gonna lie. I have no interest in these scenes. None. I don't want to hear her falling for the bullshit, and I don't want her talking about, girl, at some point you got to take some responsibility. I am so mean. I know I am because I am one of those people though. I have come from too much that other people might think, oh, you could just go do this because of this happened to you, this happened to you, this happened to you, this happened to you. Yeah, I could do that, but I'm also could stay stuck there. At some point in every adult's life, no matter what their situation is and how much they are impacted by that, you have to find an inner strength. If you plan to go on, whether you need to get support, help, whatever you need to do to get to that next step, you still have to make that conscious decision to do it. Just my opinion. Klaus is in the tub. He's come home, and I really like this scene, the showing how he's dealing with some PTSD. How we see the helicopter and the camera kind of moves and he's shaky and we hear him screaming out, Dave. We're like, who the fuck is Dave? And he kind of shakes it off, goes in his room, tries to get dressed. He's still got the damn pants on where they're showing all of his skin on the sides. Those are awful. Stop wearing those. No one wears jeans that tight. At least I don't. And number 5 sees, he looks at him in his room because he's like itching and stuff. That's what he was doing, right? And he sees the bloody prints on the floor and he asks, he's like, you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm totally good. I'm fine. He's like, so what's up with them dog tags? That's new. Oh, they're just for friends, and that tattoo? Oh, it's a long night, very long night. And number 5's like, cut the bullshit. I know the symptoms. Hello, I've time traveled before. And I know that that's exactly what you did. So you want to tell me about this experience of yours? And he's like, well, I didn't expect to be gone for so long. He was gone for a fucking year. Holy shit. He's like, I'm older now. I was like, no, what? And then I immediately thought, it's this type of recklessness I want to see in the Flash more. It's totally what I want to see in the Flash more. Because, wow, we need to get this whole story. And I have a feeling we're probably going to get it next episode because I let Netflix go on and I saw like maybe the first second of the next episode and it started in Vietnam. And I was like, oh yeah, we're getting his story soon. And I'm glad that they didn't wait too long to tell us what happened. Number 5 is like, what did you do with the briefcase? And he's like, I destroyed it. He's like, what the fuck? No. He's like, you stupid. He didn't call him an idiot. He's just like, why did you do that? And something to, I don't know what Klaus said to that effect, but number 5 said that he was going to use it to start over and get back. And I was like, oh wait, hold on. Are you giving up on the apocalypse that soon? Like, that was real quick. He was like, fuck it. I don't know where this eyeball goes. It's done. I'm getting him happen back in my suitcase and taking my ass back somewhere where it's safe. And I'm not here and dying when the apocalypse happens. But I wonder if he could have time traveled anyway. Because they mentioned that he can time travel, just not well. But I'm like, no, that seems like he could travel pretty well for someone who literally aged 60 years and then came back as a child. I think whatever he's doing, he knows enough. But he tells him that, that's when I figured out anyway, that no, I thought that maybe he was going to go back into the briefcase and try to reset, possibly stopping the apocalypse, and if he needed to like dip out really quickly, this is a good backup for us to have. So Klaus ain't feeling it. He's just leaving. He's like, whatever, dude. And number 5 takes one of his notes and starts writing something. My guess, we see where he was writing to a little later. Diego is in his room. I want everybody to stay in the same house. I'm glad we're not showing them in their own places anymore. I mean, Vanya having her own place. But everyone else just needs to stay at the house because I want to see them all together every morning. And I did think about it later though, because I remember that Diego was working at the gym and he was like, yeah, you can barely pay rent or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. So did none of them get like a trust fund? I would think if my father is a billionaire, no matter what, and it doesn't seem like he hates them, it just seems like they fell out. They just went on their separate ways. So why didn't he give them like a trust fund? Or maybe it's possible though that Diego didn't even want to touch that trust fund. Like, fuck you. He hated his daddy. Out of all the ones who hated daddy, he hated daddy. So I can see Diego being the one like, fuck your trust fund. Allison got rich. Luther stayed at home. Ben was dead. 5 was missing. I guess that makes sense. That, everyone else would have popped up better than Diego. Anyway, he's feeling guilty about Eudora. There's another flashback that is dumb, telling her to do it his way. I already figured that out, that's what he was feeling guilty about. But he opens up a case with all his knives in there, and it looks like he had only been, carrying around a few of his knives, because he puts the one that he's been carrying in his back out of the sheaths and puts them on the bed, and then he puts them back in their case as if he left the house with those knives, and the rest have just been staying there. So maybe there's even more shit that Klaus can do, or not Klaus, Diego can do with his knives that we haven't even seen yet. And he takes the case with him. Klaus does a run through the house. He stops by Pogo fixing Mom, it seems. And he don't even be like, what happened to Mom? No. He just went right past Pogo, didn't even acknowledge his existence. And maybe he was just like, y'all got enough going on. I got my shit going on. So I figured out what the fuck happened. Y'all gonna have to be on your own right now. And he goes downstairs, he sees the broken chandelier, and he's like, what the fuck happened? And I'm like, yeah, I forgot. You didn't know they were actually being attacked when you got kidnapped. And Diego comes down, and he's like, no, before Klaus even says anything. And Klaus is like, what are you talking about? Can you give me a ride? He's like, I'm not giving you a ride. He's like, I don't drive. And then he just looks at him for 2 minutes. It's like 2 seconds, then he pats him and is like, I'm gonna go get my stuff. And you can see that Diego wants to leave him, but he won't leave his brother. So again, these little tiny things that show how irritated yet how loving they are to each other. It's what makes this show. It's the heart of it. We go to Argyle Library, where Allison is doing all types of the old school research on Leonard. I'm like, girl, you could have just Googled that shit on your phone. But she was like, nah, I've got to go to the archives and get some dirt on this shit. Because she probably did a Google search. It was like, no results. What the hell does that mean? So she goes into the library researching Leonard's family. And then she finds one picture of him. And then you hear someone sneeze and she says, bless you. And right on the opposite side of her cubicle is Cha-Cha reading Vanya's book. That was just it was adorable. They both didn't know what the hell that they were there or that they were after each other. So I don't know. I just really love that scene. And then we see Hazel, instead of visiting pawn shops, is at Gritty's chatting up the waitress from episode 1 about some donuts. He started hitting her with the donut game. Like, it could be black, it could be dark and sensual. I was like, shut the fuck up about donuts. Nothing about donuts made me feel sexual. I'm sorry. But apparently that's her cup of tea, because she liked to talk about donuts too. Diego and Klaus are in their car. They're driving. Diego's remarking that, I ain't never heard you this silent since, you was 12 and you ran down the stairs and broke your jaw because you were in Grace's heels. And he had his jaw wired shut. He's like, how long was that? And he was like, and Klaus, he's trying to get Klaus to talk, right? And Klaus is like, 8 weeks. And I love how he does it because he's sad and but he's also broken a little bit, but he also can't help relating to his brother. Like, you could tell this was like a funny moment for them. They have very sadistic humor. I can tell this family. And Klaus is just drinking from this bottle of vodka, just straight from the bottle. And he's like, those were the best 8 weeks of my life of pure bliss, silent bliss anyway. And you see that Klaus recognizes something. He asks Diego to drop him off there. And I'm like, is this a VA bar? It's a VA bar. Diego look at him like he's wondering, are you okay? And Klaus doesn't even respond. He just gets out, wipes his eyes because he's still clearly mourning, and he goes in. And you see this one, I wondered if any of the people in there would look at him like, what the fuck you doing in here, or say anything to him. But they gave him a moment, and then but there is one thing I was kind of like, wait. Just because a young person was to come in there, and he went right to the wall. It looked like he was mourning. He could have had a family member that was in Vietnam. I don't understand why that couldn't have been a reasonable, plausible explanation of why he was in there and why he didn't just give that. But granted, he's in his ass moment. I don't feel like he feels the need to explain himself to anyone besides his family. And I think that's what separates the family from everyone else, is that they're so close that almost no one else gets them. And if they do get them, yeah, they're gonna, get them, but they're almost like an accessory. Like, you're gonna be in the line of fire if you're in love with anyone in this family, because they have their own issues with each other and themselves, and just a lot of baggage. But yeah, that's when he goes to a picture of Dave, and he takes out his uniform. He kisses it. He was clearly in love with this Dave, and you see the one old geezer getting up, the vet, to probably confront him like, what the fuck? First I was like, he was thinking, oh no, not gay love in here. But no, he really was like, what the fuck are you doing in here? And surprisingly, I like the way they did the fake out. It's Diego. He puts his hand on him, and he's like, and he looks behind. Klaus is like, just go away. He's like, no, not until you talk to me. My feels. And that is when the veteran comes up, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing in here? This is a VA bar. You shouldn't be in here. And Diego is respectful to this man because he understands and realizes his service. And he honestly doesn't know why Klaus is in here either. He knows something's going on, but he has no idea what. And he apologized, or he didn't apologize first. He says, hey, my brother, he's had a few too many. I apologize, we'll get out of here. And that's when he says, no, he's like, okay, that's fine, but I want an apology first. And this is real life, to be honest. I've seen this go down so many times when you see certain veterans and they're like, they're really proud, which they should be. You go out in the military, you serve, and you come back home, and then you get some asshat that don't even understand what the fuck life is or how terrible it can get coming up in your face, or just being a dick. It's their space. Why would someone come into their space? So I totally got where he was coming from, even though the fight broke out. It's just like, hey, bros before hoes. But he really did try to get the situation diffused. And he offered his apologies. He says, I'm sorry. My brother's sorry. And of course, Klaus can't let it go. He makes this sound while still staring. And that's when the guy's like, no, I want to hear it from him. And Klaus turns around and he says, yeah, I am sorry that you're something. He calls him like you're an idiot. And the guy swings on him, and Klaus headbutts the fuck out of him. And Diego's at that point, he's like, well, I gotta protect your ass. He started taking people out. They gonna take out the veterans. It was so bad, but so them. And as they're leaving, though, I was kind of, because that was the whole thing, right? Klaus kept saying, you don't understand what you're talking about. I know what you guys went through. What are you but it is hard to understand. Hey, I time traveled for 1 year, and now I know everything. But he could have said, hey, you see that guy right there? That's my long, long lost cousin. So I came here to mourn him, and I didn't know. See, we look a lot alike. I didn't realize anything. But again, I feel like this family is not one for explanations to folks outside of the family. But he's totally in the pic with Dave. Diego and Klaus are now in their car staking out gritties, and Diego's like, you never know when to keep your fucking mouth shut. And he's like, oh, really? Like, you just now figuring that out? And he takes out some drugs to do. And Diego yanks it out of his hand. Like, why are you putting this shit in your body? First and foremost, this is not the first time, Diego. But of course, I can't. Even if you know someone who does drugs, it is different when they are sitting in your car doing drugs. You're like, now I have to lecture you because you're in my aura. And he points at his body and he's like, I treat my body like a temple. I bet you do. Treat that body good. Milk does that body good. I would love to know how that temple feels on my temple. Anyways, Diego ain't with it as Klaus casually is taking out more drugs. When he took out that pill ever so casually, I laughed my ass off. I was like, he got backup upon backup upon backup. He fell out on the street. He went around the corner and literally bought everything that dude had. And that's when Diego gets all shitty at him because he takes it again, and he love when he first asked why you putting that in your body, and Klaus just blows a raspberry. It's like, come on, why are you asking me these dumb questions? And finally he says, I lost someone. He's like, I lost someone. And Diego looks at him, and I was like, tell him you lost someone too. You two are going through the same thing right now. But he says, well, at least when you lose someone, you can still see them. And I was like, that's kind of a point. But it doesn't make losing someone any easier, Diego. That was kind of like, I got where he was coming from, but that does not make his pain less bearable. But I guess at the same time, he's thinking about Eudora, and I was really sad that he didn't tell him about Eudora. And the fact that Klaus didn't even bring up or say, no, I can't see him. I wonder, that's interesting, because he sure don't see him. And then the whole time, I didn't even realize it to the end, but I was asking at this point, where the fuck is Ben? Where is he at? He is the one that we usually see being the shoulder for Klaus to lean on, but I'm glad he was able to finally do that with one of his older siblings, and I hope we see that continuously happen, that we get more dynamics between the siblings, because sometimes I hate in shows when they pair two people up and then they just make them work, and then we never get to see them react to this one or this one or this one. That's the best thing, is when you can have a cast that can interact with each other on a consistent basis, and then they all have like little special bonds down the line that you can look forward to. Like, I'm really looking forward to like a serious Allison. I mean, we had Allison Diego a little bit earlier, but even Allison and Klaus, like, I feel like they've not had a moment, and they, would probably have more. He wore her clothes, and he's the closest thing to another sister that she's gonna get, because Vanya is really hard to get to right now. Klaus recognizes Hazel from his torture when he's coming out of Gritty's, and he's like, well, we're about to fucking kill them. They're like ready to go. They murder coats, and they what kind of car do they got? Now their daddy's dead. Y'all can go ahead and use his money though. Seriously. I know he had to have some Lincolns, some Maseratis in that back. I don't even know what fucking timeline this is in, to be honest. Back at the mansion, number 5 is using his room to write time equations. And when Luther comes in, we find out that it's actually a probability map. He is trying to narrow down the people that could change events to the point of ending the world. And he has got this list down to 4. And Luther's like, oh, okay. No, not really. I'm not following. And I really love their interaction. This was very unexpected for me, because Luther is kind of the more, he's got the moral compass. And after that first conversation you had, you wouldn't even think that he would be like, how he disassociated himself with Grace. He was like, Grace killed Dad. We can't deal with Grace. Grace gotta die. But I heard someone else calling her Grace. So maybe everyone did not call her mom at some point. Maybe in the beginning. Or they saw her as mom and he was just like, nah, Grace. But he's like, well, no, he pulls out this huge ass gun. He's like, where'd you get that? From Dad's closet. I thought he got it when he hunted a rhinoceros. One, who hunts rhinoceros? That is like so unnecessary to the rhinoceros. Like, they ain't doing nothing to fuck with people. Like, if you want to hunt a lion, that's like, I'm not saying hunting's good. I'm really not a hunt fan. Especially wild animals, they ain't doing shit to nobody, just out there living their best life. Hunting is not something I'm ever gonna just jump on. Now, deer, I came along on deer, mainly because I've seen the hazard that they've created in Ohio. But going out in the wild and just killing a rhinoceros who's just chilling, ain't got no beef with nobody, that to me is so asinine. That's just for you to, lord your dominance over the world. Well, fuck you. You're a fucking shit. What the fuck makes you so damn special? Oh, because I can think? Not really. Does not make you that fucking special. We like to think so, but not really. Not really. Anyways, he points out this guy. He's like, who's Milton Green? He's like, is that what do you say, a terrorist? He's like, a gardener, I think. This just cracked me up because of Luther's face. And number 5 has like all the plans in the world to murk this dude like ASAP. And he's like, he's an innocent man. He's like, you just can't kill this man based on some math you just did. And I'm like, facts? And then number 5 says, well, everyone will die in 4 days regardless. And I was like, equal facts. But come on now. He had 4 more days. But that's the thing. You could kill him and it might not even stop the apocalypse. So it's like, you can't. Oh, I just love they're playing Russian roulette with people's lives. Luther is like, nah, we ain't doing that. And 5 is like, yeah, I am. No, what he says, no, we're not doing that. I'm doing that. And Luther very aptly picks up Dolores and threatens her. Because when he first walked in the room, he was like, who are you talking to? But he figured it out real quick. So he ain't no dummy. And he grabbed Dolores and put her ass hanging outside the window. And did you see number 5 get his Murder Rick face on? Murder Rick Grimes' face came out on number 5 is all I'm saying. And he had that gun pointed at him like, don't you dare. Like, put her down now. And that's when I briefly thought, Luther, why aren't you updating Allison on her imminent death? Y'all's besties. I expected more from you. Luther, who is really calm and steady, and I think that's his strength more than he realizes. Him being the very calm, stalwart, steady influence, and for the most part, other than having some regression in his mental mindset, he is a good person who seems to want the best. And he tells number 5 that, hey, I get that you were an assassin, but I also still know you're a good person, or you wouldn't have sacrificed everything to come back here. So please just put the gun, because you're not alone anymore. Let's figure this shit out together. We ain't gotta go around murdering folks. And he acts like he's gonna drop Dolores, and I love to see him time jump again, because I feel like I haven't seen it in a while. And he catches her and he gets the gun, Luther that is, and he says, I can do this all day. And that's when number 5 knows he can't go kill someone because Luther's not gonna let it happen. And he sits on the bed and cradles Dolores, and she probably was like, you dummy. He listened to him. He's right. Because he does say, well, there is something we can do, but there's one thing, but it's impossible. And Luther says, as impossible as you getting your ass back here? And I was like, Luther, with the facts. Vanya is playing her violin in her apartment. Allison pops by to tell her Leonard ain't right for the 90th time. And I did say, though, at that point, Allison, let her go. But I get it. She's lost her daughter. She now has a sister, and she doesn't. That's the thing about death, right? You have things that you feel before you lose an important member of your family. When they're gone, they're gone. And it starts to get you to reflect on how you treat other members of your family. I know when my cousin passed away, I wasn't super close with all of my sisters, but after that event, hanging out, being around each other, what was separating us, it felt so minute. Like, why don't we talk more? Why don't we do more things? So I can see why Allison at this point in her life, especially now being older, more mature, having a daughter, fully comprehending that she was not the best person she could have been. And she's also trying to make amends for a past that she's not proud of. And part of that is starting and establishing a relationship with the sister that she never had, because she's lonely. She can see that she's lonely, and it's just too late because Leonard got her ass on lockdown. And Vanya even says it. She's like, well, he's the only one that makes me feel special. And I'm like, but y'all still sisters, and she has never tried to do anything to undermine or hurt you, right? If anything, it was the opposite. Words are words between family, but actions speak for something too. And I think that, to my knowledge anyway, there's nothing we've seen in the past to say that Allison would do something to just hurt Vanya. So I feel like Vanya not taking these words seriously at all, and she caught this man creeping in your apartment, is a rather naive. And then she follows it up with, you're not my mother. Worry about your own daughter.
Why you being a dickhead for? Stop being a dickhead.
And I was like, girl, that's uncalled for. She tells Allison to leave, and Allison does. She don't even give her like some evil words too. She just left. It's like, fine, you know, I said my piece. I did what I could. But Allison is ride or die for her family, right? Because she straight go to this dude's apartment. She's like, I'm gonna find some dirt on this motherfucker. She ain't listening, so I'm gonna have to just put it in her face. We go to Cha-Cha and Hazel. Cha-Cha thinks that she knows the Hargreaves because she's read their book, but she has learned a few things. She knows all about their powers anyway. Hazel's still mad that they got double beds and not singles, and she's like, look, dude, it's for another night. Stop bitching. We got bigger problems. And we need to worry about all these family members. And as Hazel is looking out the window, he sees Diego in his car behind an ice cream truck. However, we also saw prior to that Diego was putting a bomb underneath Cha-Cha and Hazel's car. So they was totally about to sit in their car and watch these people blow the fuck up. Because as we go back to the car, because at first I was like, that is sloppy as hell to just let him see you. You're better than that, Diego. But I was like, nah, he just wanted a front seat. He wanted him to come down so they can get in their car to drive off so that they can watch them implode. And it's understandable. They killed his girl and they tortured his brother. And then they broke into their house and beat up their family. They got to die. Diego is like, I'm gonna sleep like a baby tonight, when Klaus thinks that, you know, it's not so easy just killing somebody like this. Because obviously Klaus has probably killed someone now. I love that all got bodies on their hands at this point in their lives. Except for Luther, Allison, and maybe, well, Ben, that's because he's dead. But Hazel says that's when they get a knock on the door anyway, and Hazel is like, well, we're late to this appointment. No, that's a Cha-Cha. She reads the note from number 5 saying that he wants to meet. They're like, how are we gonna get rid of these idiots? She's like, they mentioned something or the ice bucket, and they go with the ice bucket, which is clearly a distraction because we see Hazel coming out the room and he does this sigh like and walks off. Probably like, shit, I really just don't even feel like fucking doing this no more. I think that side was real from Hazel. I think he really is, after his conversation with the waitress lady, I think he's ready to just retire. He's tired of doing this. Diego and Klaus go, or at least Diego goes to follow, and he tells Klaus to stay in the car, but Klaus don't listen. And he's like, you never listen to me, don't you? He's like, I did listen to you. You told me that licking a 9-volt battery would give me pubes. And I love how Diego just gets really close. And he's like, we were 8. Like, don't bring this shit up. And Diego tells him, no, you need to get your ass back to the car. I'm going to take care of this shit. If I don't come out in 2 minutes, I didn't make it. I'm dead. Go get help. And Klaus wanted to stay, but yeah, he shushed him away. He goes back up to the room. He busts in the door, and they're gone. It was, of course, as I thought, a distraction. And then you see these fools in a bunny mask driving down the street just shooting. First and foremost, who did not get no plates on that car? The hotel, like, if they go back to that hotel, I'm like, that's unrealistic. That's not realistic. Not even a little bit, because everyone noticed that car. Unless they showed up in a different car, that's the only thing that can save them. And they did have the mask on. But they start shooting at Diego. They end up clipping him, right? Like, because he acted like he was not hurt later on at all. And as they go back to their car to follow them, they see that the tires have been slashed. And I was like, damn, y'all stopped there and had that 9-minute conversation and allowed them to do all this shit. Vanya is going to this recital of whatever, and we finally see that her powers come from her violin, because we go from like 3 people not even interested whatsoever in her to being thoroughly entranced. And while she's playing her concerto, Allison is breaking into Leonard. Number 5 and Luther go to the drop to meet with Cha-Cha and Hazel out in the boondocks somewhere. Number 5, as they're waiting in the car, admits that he never took pleasure from killing. He's like, I didn't like it, Luther. I was good at it, and I prided myself on that, but it never gave me pleasure. So don't think that, I'm a sadist. And he admits that solitude can distort your mind. And again, this is another thing that you didn't kind of realize 2 characters had in common, because Luther admits that, I was on the moon for 4 years, isolated, and it was being the lone that almost broke him, that was breaking him. And it's a moment that they're able to connect, and Luther wants to know, okay, well, what happens if this shit goes sideways? And he's like, they're gonna want this, like, he asked if it's gonna work, and he's like, they're desperate, so if they get caught without their case, they're in deep shit. And so that's what they got going for them. And Luther says, well, I'm gonna hold on to the case regardless in case they try to go for you. And number 5 is like, okay, well, be careful, because you're young. I've lived a long life, don't waste it. And you see Luther kind of give him this look like, I don't care what the fuck you say, you're still my baby brother. I don't care how many lives you've lived more than me, but it's a charming little moment. And then you see Cha-Cha and Hazel roll up. Number 5 tells Luther to tell Dolores that he's sorry if this shit goes sideways. What's he sorry for? I don't know. And then number 5 walks up to Cha-Cha and Hazel, and then Cha-Cha's all up in his grill like, okay, kid, what's this all about? And she's like, bitch. He didn't say that, but he was just like, oh, this is what we gonna do? Come on, I ain't a kid. You know what the fuck this up. He says that you can play this game, but we got your fucking case. And by reading my brother's book that you probably did your homework by now, he can basically whoop your ass. And by the time you even got to me, you still would be dead. And Hazel, he seconded that so quick, he was like, and amen to that. Like, hell, I don't want no part of that whole thing over there. And he's like, so what do we want? What do you want? How do we get out of this situation? And he says, I want to talk to your supervisor face to face for a chat. Cha-Cha's like, for what? And he tells her it's none of your damn business. And she goes to a payphone. I love that they have a payphone out in the middle of nowhere. I ain't seen a payphone in like 10, 15 years. Not one. And she punches some random ass numbers and then hangs up. And Luther asks, well, what do we do now? We wait, because number 5 go back to the loving arms of Luther. And then out of the blue is some loud ass ice cream truck music. And they're all like looking like, what the fuck is that? And here comes Diego and Klaus. And he tells him, he's like, go fast. They're going as fast as they possibly can. They really thought they was doing something in this truck. And you see Ben in there talking about weed. And I'm like, Ben, where the fuck you been at? Does anyone know that Klaus has been talking to Ben? Has he told anyone that? And the way Klaus waved at Luther, or waved at Luther and number 5, and number 5 was just like, what the fuck? And then Luther, he raised his hand like, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, wave. Oh, so funny. And then Cha-Cha immediately goes set up and they start firing. And Luther is protecting his baby brother with his body. And it was so adorable because he was straight up about to get shot. And everything freezes just as Cha-Cha and Hazel getting ran the fuck over. That cracked me up too. And that is when the handler arrives. And she's congratulating him on his age regression. He's like, yeah, that's a fucking miscalculation. And he pulls a gun on her real quick. I love how he's so, the actor, Aidan Gallagher, is amazing. I know a lot of people say that about him, but it's so complex, the character he's playing, that it's not, oh, he's cute, oh, he's adorable, let's protect him. No, he don't need fucking protection. This is a grown-ass man playing the grownest of ass men, and he's really only 15. It's just phenomenal how cash he is in the role of being also an assassin. So he casually just pull out that gun like, bitch, we can go today. And he wants her. She's like, well, what do you want? And he's like, well, I want you to fucking stop the apocalypse, obviously. And she's like, I couldn't even stop it if I wanted to. And she's like, well, he, threatens to kill her. And she's like, well, I'll be replaced. I am just a small cog in the machine. And I was like, what is the bigger threat here? And she tells him that, hey, you've been nurturing this fantasy all this time that you're going to come back here. You're going to save the world. You're going to save your family mostly. And it's just that. It's a fantasy. But your tenacity and what you're willing to do and sacrifice, that's some good material we're looking for. And we're all quite impressed. Now, how are they able to watch him this entire time? Do they have like a huge screen of rooms where they could just look in on where somehow they're watching him? He don't got the tracker in his arm. And the fact that this chick can freeze time, like I said, this is so beyond. I can't wait till we get more of this story. And she offers him, instead of his life or threatening him, she's like, no, I want to give you a promotion. I want you to come work for us in home office and take a position at the commission. And he says, what about the apocalypse? Like, shit, there's nothing to be done about the apocalypse. How many times I gotta tell you that? And then he gets down to what he really wants. He's like, I want my family to survive. And she's like, all of them? She knows something we don't know, probably about Vanya. And she says, because she looks at him like, look at the family members like, this is the shit that you want? You're so much smarter than that. You're so much better than that. However, I feel like she downplaying both. Because I feel like if Vanya got her shit together and she started just listening to Allison and they really built that relationship, Vanya would be fine. I don't have a problem with her character. I have a problem with how she's acting right now. And I would love to see Vanya and fucking, like, I feel like the smartest out of the three really is Vanya. Probably number 5, and then Allison. I don't feel like Allison knows what the fuck is up, and when she goes for something, she goes for it, and she's doing it all without using her powers, which is the one thing we haven't seen her do yet. Interesting. I don't know how I feel about that though, because I want to see her use her powers. And I don't want that to be a running thing. Like, I get you're trying to use your life, but when we get a season 2, I want to see you use your powers. And it be okay. Because if you're battling bad guys, hey, I'm all for it. And she says, well, I'll see what I can do. And then he's like, well, one thing. And then he goes and takes the gun that Hazel discarded, takes the bullets out and tosses the gun away. And then he moves the bullet that was going to strike Luther so that it does not strike him. And then he accepts the offer and they both disappear and time unfreezes. And Luther's like, number five, is anyone gonna give him a name, or we just gonna call him number 5? I get it. He wasn't around long enough to graduate to getting a name, but I'm okay with number 5 too. It just fits him. And Luther sees Cha-Cha and Hazel, says, you want this? He throws the briefcase. Cha-Cha runs to go get it. And he goes to rescue his brothers, who are all types of banged the fuck up, and throws them in their car. And you see Ben's in there too. He's like, come on, let's go. He's so excited. It's like the gang's back together. And they realize too late, Cha-Cha, and because Hazel goes to shoot at them, and of course he has no bullets. And they realize too late that it's a fucking... they're trapped there. They are literally trapped there. And to think that they thought that their bosses wouldn't know they lost the case, especially after seeing what this handler just did. Like, maybe they don't even deal with upper management. Maybe because he even said, like, no one was as good as me. So maybe everyone else they plucked from time were just like zeros. Like people that could do the job but weren't the smartest, but they're like, no, you special. Vanya goes to Leonard's and they make love. Yuck. dead brother is, oh yeah, I was like, fuck, because I was like, what is in the attic? Because that's the one place that Allison unfortunately did not get the chance to look. And it looks like Ben up there, right? Wrapped in the plastic. And I was like, what the fuck is that about? And then we see that their daddy's book is there because it has the initials RH. And that's the book that old boy threw away. And I'm like, fuck, Klaus. Like, you put something in someone's hands, and again, it goes back to these things about choices. Like, if you make this choice, this will happen. This choice, this will happen. Yeah, I wonder if that got something to do with that, because that cannot, he didn't have that in that possession before. And then I guess as she's making love, so is this like brought on by her emotions? I don't know, but it, you know, we see the window crack. Obviously, whatever she's doing, she's off her meds. It's the meds that's been controlling her this entire time, and this Leonard's trying to take advantage of it. Probably put her all in types of out so that she kills the entire world, right? We get a flash to Pogo, who is in the mansion. He feels the high-pitched screech, and he just sit his ass back down like, And Grace is back. Grace is back. I was actually sad that Grace, I was like, come on, she's a robot. I want to see what else she fucking do. And I know if she's a robot and she was being a mother to these children, that she'd do something way more, because they said she was for protection, right? So I'm like, nah, she's something else. But she sounds more of herself. Like, she doesn't sound dazed and confused as we met her. And Pogo apparently was just, all we needed to do was have him work on her. But I'm like, Pogo, why didn't you fucking say that? And he tells her, do you know what happened? Or do you remember what happened? And she says, I do. And she says, the children can never know. And I know she didn't kill him. At least I don't think so. Right? I don't know. But that is how we end the fucking episode. And I have no idea what is going to happen. Absolutely none. I'll probably try to get back into Umbrella Academy around Saturday or Sunday. It's been a really hectic week. And I've had 3 migraines. So, not great. But the kid is gone after tomorrow. Thank Jesus. She going on spring break. And she going to her daddy's house. And I need this break in my life. I love my daughter more than anything in this world. But if people tell you kids is not annoying, they fucking lying. They fucking lying. I'm just saying this right now. You fucking liars. Anyways, if you want to send feedback for this podcast, you can send that to blackgirlcouch@gmail.com. You can find this podcast on Stitcher, iTunes, Podbean, and Spotify at Black Girl Couch Reviews. My social medias will be down below. It's been real. Flash is next. Peace.